Hallo Jeroen.
Hi Fabiola.
Hi. So, we're having this conversation about the history of the future.
Yeah. Yeah, that was quite a good team, I think. Quite an interesting team, because we're now in a kind of, in some way, I think, but I don't know how you look at it, but we suddenly we suddenly are in a kind of future. So a lot of things that happen nowadays are like being on the edge of the future. So I think at the moment, a lot of people feel that they think, are we in the next period? Are we in the next context? Or we're still in the same context? So we're in a kind of edge. It's and I think this, on the one hand, worries maybe people. On the other hand, has a kind of feeling of opportunities. So that a lot of things that were always the same now can change. It's like the fall of the Berlin Wall or something like that, that you have the feeling, I don't know what's going to happen, but it won't be the same anymore. Other people say that's a story. I'm cynical about this. Everything will always be the same no matter what happens. So you see, in my way of looking at the moment is that, yeah, we're on this edge, and we not yet know if we are in the future or we are in the now, or maybe we're in the past.
Yeah, I have a similar feeling, more in looking into this moment as if it is some kind of in-between space. And in those gray areas normally is when you can actually find, like you said, opportunities. And in this idea of letting go of the past normal and the new normal, maybe there's the opportunity to change habits and the attitudes in doing things. And because when we were talking about this event, this webinar that Nishant asked us to participate to, we were thinking, both of us, of this idea of what would we say in the future when we look back at this moment and what we're doing now. And this also made me think of one of the questions that Nishant asked us to answer, like if there are 3 things for the future of our education that we would like to bring to the future. And I think this 2 way of looking at it are super connected. So what is it that in this moment, I think it's really important to tackle so that we can actually bring it with us? And what I find with all the, of course, difficulties that need to be acknowledged, of course, it would be trivial not to do it. But this idea of the opportunity of detoxify ourselves from some certainties that regulates, for example, our educational systems, I find them quite challenging, but at the same time also quite exciting. Then we are in a phase in which we are forced to redefine what is actually important for education and what is at the core of education. And in my experience lately, what I notice is this stream, this movement of people that are really acting as social actors for change. They're really joining forces to produce something that goes in the direction of what it's important. I don't know how you look at that from your experience.
Yeah, I come back to that, but first to react to where you started. So I come back to the activism part, and if there are people who, or I am aware of that certain people are in a certain kind of activity, but this question about the 3 points we bring to the future, there I have a problem. I really have a problem, because I think that's past. That's in a way past thinking. So that's I think that this always this planning mode of, okay, do you have a good narrative, and then we bring it to the future, and then we start to implement it. It's this kind of linear thinking. It's a kind of story of a kind of policy in which you first make thoughts and then make actions, which is for me, yeah, at the point on that it doesn't work anymore. The question is then, what do you want to do then? And so it's a good question. What do you bring to the future would for me more or less be the question of what do you receive from the future?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not what you bring to there, but what is in fact calling out of the future to you. And that's far more a sensitivity mode than a planning mode. It's far more an articulations of questions out of the future which come to the now than theories out of the past that you bring into the future. So that's quite another habit of looking at what you have to do. So when you want to bring something to the future, to come back to that, it's more or less in how you hook on to what what the future calls from you. So that's a major point for me in also training in how to work with people, how to work with myself, or and this sometimes need a kind of step back to receive instead of to bring.
Mm.
It is now let's give an example. My daughter, she's a cook. She lost her job. Yeah, she has a new friend. It's a great guy. He is very committed to her. Um, and the first thing she asks now, time after time, is, "What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next?" Because he's very worried. And it's very, yeah, it's a lovely guy in this. But in fact, they are just for, I think now, yeah, 2 months or something together. And they're really in love. And she's very happy to be in love. And in fact, she don't want to think about the future. She's very much into the here and now. And I had a talk with her yesterday and I said, yeah, this future will come, but stay for a moment in a moment of love you have now together and 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 be open to what the future will bring you instead of bringing something now to the future and forgetting that you're in love. Now, this is a kind of, there are all things about this and can it and can it not, but it gives quite an idea, I think, of you have to also to make a step back and just wait what happens instead of
No, but with that, I completely agree. And
plan.
for me, for example, thinking in perspective of futures is also quite hard because in general, I tend to strive for being in the here and now and react to the here and now. But what I found particularly interesting in this moment is, for example, thinking of some experiences we had with projects we work on, that there are some things that are happening in the here and now that I valued a lot and that kind of surprised me in a positive way. Really, these beautiful things that happen in people really joining forces because of the situation. That is mostly a movement of hope that I hope again to bring with me and in my own practice as an educator in the future. So looking at that more in this sense. So for example, if I look at what happened with our No School project, the way that people managed to work together due to the commitment and the responsibility they had for one another and the respect also for the work that everybody was doing, it was quite not surprising because I didn't think that we as group were able to do it, but quite surprising because this situation is overwhelming. So people can have different ways of reacting to it.
Yeah, when you mean that, I think what was surprising in No School, for example, and making a No School station in no time, was in fact also that we often take a lot more time than we need to do things, sometimes all this planning stuff and all these kind of things that we're normally into to make a kind of good plan and a business plan and whatever what costs so much time and is so much non-effective. What we did in making our school station, we talked for an hour about it and it worked out.
Yeah, you heard the beep.
I heard it.
It was the sound that told us that our time's up. But what I wanted to say, if I can take up just one more minute, is going back to this retrieving what is really the core of education, of this educational movement. What the experience of no school has taught us is that we are so stuck into all the systems and systematic ways of giving classes, of teaching and of learning, that sometimes really the core business, let's call it like this, is just sometimes it goes away. And this
now what happens then may I
sure no problem.
What is interesting is that I think when in times like this, it's the same in times like war and disease, or when you're dying or something like that, you lose the formal.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and all the restrictions of the formal, the scholarish moments, it's just an existential moment, and it's very informal, and you have no time to get into all kinds of stuff that isn't really true. You're very much connected to what is really real to you and what is really important.
Yeah,
exactly. You don't take time anymore for nonsense, and you are far more like, when I'm on the edge, I'm with the back to the wall. So I stop doing things which are just playing around. And that you can sense that sometimes. Also the other end, so it's also a clownery of people who are just even more weird than ever in playing the clown, and completely out of anything. But both sides you see, I think. And when we look back from, as a kind of history of the future of this time, this moment in time is about how long you take for this moment of time. But I hope we can see also the silence in this moment in time, not only the activism, also the silence, that people really have the feeling that the boomerang of the past is thrown in their face.
That's definitely true, and I think this is definitely one of the things to bring along, this possibility of reflection. Definitely, this time for silence and reflection. So on this note, I think we close this short conversation, but we'll definitely talk soon.
And as always, it's very good to have conversations with you, Fabiola.
Likewise. Thanks, Jeroen. Bye.